film journalist, podcast host, and I'm honored to be here today to moderate this incredible conversation we're about to have about all the filmmaking that went into the two films that you just saw. I'm going to bring up our special guest this evening. First off is Myron Kerstein, who is the editor of Wicked. Myron's awesome. Next up is the legendary producer, Marc Platt.
Yeah!
And give it up now for director, Jon M. One more time for Jon M. See you guys.
These are my people. You sat there too, Romy.
Was this kind of the ultimate dream, though, to have these films playing back to back in one sitting? It was
Yes.
13-minute production.
Yes. 13 minutes on purpose. We had 13 hours. Very few people have watched it all the same, except for us, who have watched. It was like 3 years ago we watched it all together. But so I'm very excited too. I'm very interested to know like how that all pieced together for you versus us.
And what's amazing about watching these two films, obviously, like, Hollywood and there's the movie business of aspects of things, and obviously you have a storyline that you can break into two parts, but there's got to be a reason emotionally and narratively to make two parts of this story and make it, and it really earns that, especially when you watch part two. But obviously, let's just go back to the beginning real fast and kind of with you and Marc specifically about the choice to split this into two films. I know the show itself, it runs similarly up to Act 1, intermission, Act 2, but was it always going to be two, or when was the decision made?
It was made very early on in our journey together because a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to. Wicked has characters that people love and feel very protective of, and same with the music and the story. We really wanted to tell the full story, and when we started looking at having to cut songs and cut things, I thought, well, that doesn't feel right. And so we sort of did a deeper dive and realized that there was a lot that could be excavated from these characters, particularly in the second half. Because in the stage musical, we kind of have to get out of the theater by 11 p.m. So we made a lot of cuts in that second act, and we really, it's broader stroked, and we really felt there was a lot to unearth from Elizabeth's journey and from Glinda's journey, particularly in the second film. And so it laid out kind of emotionally, the first film being choices that these characters make, things they think they want. One of them, Elphaba, thinks she wants something, to be loved, to be with the wizard, and then that whole dream gets shattered, and something has changed within her. Something is not the same. She has to go in her direction, and Glinda isn't yet ready to make that kind of decision. She stays where she is. In the second film, the girls both have to live through the consequences of those decisions, and why one chooses to stay and fight, and how one sort of looks herself in the mirror, literally, and understands what she's comfortable or not comfortable living the way that she's living.
And Jon, you're directing these films simultaneously, which is incredible to even think about, because the tone of part one and part two, kind of to Marc's point, are different in that way. And there's a much darker tone in this second part, but there is such a beautiful light to it as well. Can you talk about the scenario where you'd be on the same day filming scenes in part one and part two? And I think that's kind of the beauty of what you do as a filmmaker. You have to tell your actors where they are, continuity-wise, what they've been through when they're filming that scene, because movies aren't shot linearly. But speak about an instance where you had to shoot a scene from part one and part two in the same day.
Yeah, it wasn't, I know it sounds crazy, but when you have one full story, it's not as crazy as it seems.
Yeah.
We never saw this as two separate movies. They are two movies, but they were as one experience of a movie. Like, I love this idea. We do a lot of reflections and distortions. And the first movie being maybe that's considered a distortion, but a fairy tale, and then to then in movie two to then say, hey, this is the reality of life, of the fairy tale, and do we accept that? To me, that was a very clear idea that the movie 2 is the reason you make Wicked in the first place. It's easy to love movie 1 and to have the thing, but movie 2 is the challenge. That's when we don't have the answers for you. That's literally the reflection of where we are today. And she, even Alphabet hands off the Grimmery to Glinda, and she has the power, and she has the knowledge, and she knows the truth. And what is she going to do with it? In a way, that was our question to ourselves. What are we going to do as a country, as a world, now that we're in this? And so every day we were shooting, we had this big war room, and in the war room we had images of the color of both movies, and you could walk the war room and feel the colors and the sets and the costumes, and you could walk both movies, and you could feel the development of where it went. So it was never about getting darker, it was just getting deeper into these characters. So For Good, for instance, was on a rain cover day. A lot of choices were made because it was a giant movie. We had to prep. We prepped for 6 to 9 months, something like that. We were there for 9 months of prep. And so in that prep, we had to get every musical number. It's not always written in the script about how to do a musical, how to visualize it. I sort of have to live with it and work with the actors and find how I feel like it needs to be expressed, sometimes according to how they're expressing it. And then we visualize it, and then we build it. We're going to do that with every single number, which is like 20-something numbers. Choreograph it, build the sets around what those are, build the costumes around those are, use iPhones, and we work with Alice Brooks, our amazing cinematographer, and her camera operators to edit that, cut it together, figure out how we're going to do it so they know what equipment, how to budget sets, all before we shot one frame of it. For Good was a rain cover set because we had basically done every small set we could do. There was weather stuff, you couldn't shoot in London until a certain time in the year, so we had to get all this, and then obviously the big builds just take a lot of time, so you're doing like the dorm room, a hallway, a classroom, and that's why we did Popular as our first musical number. Just a few weeks later, we did our second musical number, which is Girl in the Bubble, because those were just sort of the side. So she had to jump in her emotion. I know they used perfume to like jump between both movies.
Really?
Yeah.
But it gives different scents. They wanted different.
Yeah, she had different
feels,
smells.
different scents, both of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
They had
everything's
playlists.
different. Nails are different, hair's different.
Hair's different. Even the freckles are different. They grow, and over time, the wear and tear of the costume. So, because in a weird way, you get a benefit because you can actually. You know what you shot the day before, and so you can do that. When you're shooting What Is This Feeling, we're using frames and split screens, and suddenly you're in the closet of For Good, and you're like, they're playing this amazing moment in the closet, and there's a wall in its way, and the question was asked, which one do you cover first? But they were so in it already that we're like, you gotta knock this wall down. I wanna see both of them at the same time. And Nathan, our amazing production designer, is like, if you knock that wall down, you can't use this set anymore. Like, you cannot, the foundation of this set is based off of that wall. And it was just happening so fast that we knew that we couldn't lose this opportunity, so we knocked down the wall and shot it, which is why the door is a little bit crooked and all the things. The VFX really wanted to fix it. We're like, no, keep it the same. That's how you know AI didn't make this shit. Those moments what I live for, and then we have that literal frame when in What Is This Feeling, when they come together. We know that in the mirror scene, when she says, in Popular, she says, look at yourself, you're beautiful. And, I remember 3 weeks later, we're shooting As Long As You're Mine. And he approaches, and Johnny approaches her at the mirror, and she can't even look at herself in the mirror because she doesn't know how beautiful she is yet, so he has to get her there. All the reflections, we had plenty of those things. So, but those things were able to be discovered or also planned, where where the hands are grabbing and how we can reflect that scene, or a shot where Glinda looks at her when she turns. We can do the same thing later, or how she holds the hat when she gives her the hat later when Elphaba's gone and she's on the floor. She holds the hat the same way, or that's the same position that just a couple weeks before we had just shot. The beginning of Popular, when she says, oh look, it's tomorrow. And so those things are intentional and also things we discovered in the scene that we were making. And so it was in a weird way, it was great to be able to shoot.
That whole closet scene, just to elaborate for John, something John and the girls found wasn't in the script. And that we couldn't plan for that. And it just happened, and John, with his exquisite mind, just went with it and went with the girls and found that moment. No planning.
Just to be clear, we found it in rehearsal, and some of the reporting like, oh, we found it in while we were shooting, and suddenly we were like, there, we found it in rehearsals, and then we had to know we needed that closet, we needed, but following and chasing it on that day was amazing to witness.
Yeah, but everything you just said reminds me, it's just the mind of a great filmmaker, but also you're listening to your movie. You're listening to it as you're making it. It's speaking to you. Myron, because the editing in these films is incredible. And John, I told you this when we sat down about a month or so ago. But as I was watching part 2, I was taking notes for the interview John and I had coming up. And about 30, 40 minutes into my notes, I write down, I'm waiting for Glenda and Alphabet to finally come back together on screen. And where are they? When is this going to happen? I'm not joking. 15 seconds later, that scene happens, where they first meet in this film for the first time. And to me, that's just this beautiful idea of collaborating with your audience, knowing your audience's anticipation, knowing what we want, but when to give it to us. Can you speak on that, Myron, as an editor, and kind of understanding our longing for these characters to be back together and when to hit that moment right?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how much I love these two.
Yeah.
It's been just an amazing 3 years where you get to spend, you know, not always like, we are sometimes, you know, but we also, you know, we're just trying to find ways to make these two different, you know, films very unique. And for me, I had, you know, 250 hours of footage pouring into the edit room over 8 months, and I was just trying to find my way. And there was things about the first movie that I knew was gonna, you know, that it was always about this relationship and about the girls together. And for the first film, you know, they're practically together almost the entire movie. And I knew in the second film I wasn't going to have that. I wasn't going to have the benefit of these two characters together. And so I had to utilize that as a means to like, it was like a collision course of these two coming back together, and that we're going to have to yearn for that and sort of balance, you know, these other plot devices with Bach and Nessa, and establishing the mission of Elphaba trying to convince the animals that they have to fight against the wizard, and that Glenda is now working for Morrible and the wizard, you know, with the propaganda machine, and then that suddenly when they are together, that it's such a relief, and that takes a lot of balancing and restructuring and listening to the film, and the second film took a long time to. I was terrified of the second film. I mean, the first film, the success of it, and the joy of it, and the whimsical nature of it, you know, I had all these tools and toolbox I couldn't use in the second movie. So I just had to embrace what the second film was doing. And then when they do come together, it's just such a relief. And then we tear them apart again, just within the next 15 minutes. And you know, when they're torn apart again with Alphabet discovering the secret prison, and Glenda is in the wedding, like none of that was scripted together. And so we found that in the edit to intercut those two. That way they still felt like they're together. So anyways, it's a lot of gut. It's a lot of like listening to like or referring to like movies like Jaws, where you're like waiting for the shark to show up, and then and so when they are together, there's that relief, and then you have to tear them apart again, and then it is a tragedy, right? And so and embracing like the first film was like Empire Strikes Back, and the second film was Return of the Jedi, and that this is a tragedy, and this is an opera. And that it was going to have its own pace, and it was going to be a slow burn, and hopefully the audience accepts that.
I want to give a shout out. You mentioned Alice Brooks, incredible cinematographer. The reflections and shadow work, yeah, right? The reflections and the shadow work in this film are incredible, especially the scene with Elphaba and Glenda and their fight. through the shadows, Elphaba's fake death sequence through the shadow, even down to reflections of Linda in the bubble. These are really narratively interesting choices that are done. They look cool on screen, but there's a reason for them. Can you speak about the use of shadows and reflections and kind of what you wanted to get across as a filmmaker?
Well, one of the things I was always taught was the great cinematographers play in the shadows. And I always loved that. My first class at USC was like, trust the light. One candle can get there. Now you have 15 stops you can get to. It's crazy, but I love that we in reverse to what you expect from movies and some fairy tales, that the truth was in the darkness and the lie was in the light. And so that's something that Alice and I tracked from the very beginning to the end, that we would bring then that every time, even Fierro in the beginning, where that light is bursting past him, that there was too much light, and that by the end he's literally in the shadows of that and speaking the truth and saying with the girl. So we loved that as a palette for us, but also this idea of reflections and distortions. You talk about the mirror a lot. A lot of people look at the reflection, and for instance, in Girl in the Mirror, this idea that even in the reflection, that there is a prism between you and that image. Even in a reflection, that's not actually you. That is you looking back at yourself and judging yourself. And that being good was not about any reflection or distortion. It was about acting good. And that's a lesson that even Elphaba gives to her. And so I love that, we're all on our phones, we're all filming ourselves, we're scrolling through things, and we're always looking at what our reflection is and what that feels like. So that was something that we always thought about, whether it is shadows or actual reflections through the movie. So we loved playing that.
Something that makes me really emotional, just looking out and just seeing a packed theater of people, just who come together to watch a film. We sit with strangers and we experience these stories. And Mark, I was telling you outside, both these films now combined have made over $1 billion at the box office. There have been a lot of people who are coming together to experience these stories. I think about the people who, after the film was over, they leave in the conversations that they have. It's a beautiful thing. Talk about this theatrical experience, and obviously it's something that we really want to keep people going to the theaters. Obviously there's a lot of choices now, but people are leaving their homes, they're going to watch these movies. As a producer, you've been producing movies for many years, you've obviously seen all the changes in Hollywood. Why is Wicked still being able to bring in this large of an audience?
Well, there's something in the collective experience of this story and these characters that's very gratifying. We're all very delighted with the success of both films and their artistic achievements, large in part to this gentleman here, Jon M. What I think what's been most gratifying for all of us is understanding the power of cinema. And that and the collective experience that is so vital and essential to all of us as a society in a time where people are becoming more siloed, both because they live in echo chambers, or they're arguing, or they're watching stories singularly. And there's something about a story that invites you, compels you, urges you to go into a theater with hundreds of other people and experience something that not only is satisfying entertainment, but that speaks to you, that has something in it that you want to carry with you and take out of the theater. And I think in our culture today, it's really only the theatrical cinematic experience that can do that. And what it's doing when it works like a Wicked, which is the most gratifying part to Jon, to Myron, myself, the girls, all of us, is that it unifies us at a time when nothing is unified. But in those 2 hours, or 2 hours and 9 minutes, 2 hours and 40 minutes of the first movie, we're all unified, and we're transported over the rainbow, and we're watching a story about humanity and truth, and understanding that to do real good isn't about being popular or getting what you thought you wanted. It's doing good to make change for the better of all of us. And it all relies on human connection that those two characters have. And that's something audiences love and has unified folks for this whole year. There's a whole community online since the first film, just eager and globally in anticipation of the second film. And community is what we need. So we love film, we're grateful we're filmmakers and get to do it, and we want to keep making the kinds of films that bring all of you into the theater together to have that experience.
And I do have to say, for us to be at a time where you can have these two amazing women emerge from their shells to share love and friendship and the importance of that unabashedly, no cynicism, to be able to share their vulnerabilities and wounds with the world, and have knowing that the world's going to come out with their knives. Shame on people who put that down. These girls are giving us everything. It is why people around the world are drawn to it. It's why they love it, and they're sharing a real friendship that happened on set that I got to be a part of, that we got to be a part of, and I just think we should honor that with everything that we have, because it is not, we live in a world of cynicism, and when an actor is able to share these things with the world, they have to be emotionally available to criticism of that, or to mocking of that, or to cringeness of that, and none of that was on any of his frames. Everything was about giving joy and love to the world, and the reason why it makes that much money. Yes, of course the story is great. Yes, of course the music's great. But if those girls don't have that true, pure joy and love, it doesn't work. And I give all them the credit for that.
The performances are so magical that I miss them after the movie's over.
Yeah.
I miss spending time with Elphaba and Linda. I want to see them more. Myron and Jon, you've worked together a few times now. Crazy Rich Asians, as well as Ice. Incredible. The director-editor relationship is a very fascinating thing, because you're really working together to find this cut of the film. And I want to use the For Good sequence as an example of editing and also filming, because in that sequence, what's brilliant about it is when to show Elphaba, when to show Glinda, and back and forth. How long do you stay on Elphaba? How long do you stay on Glinda? And that's all choice, and it's all feeling. But also, like, the intimate epic aspect we were talking about a little bit ago. These movies feel so massive and epic, but at the same time so intimate. So the For Good scene is such an intimate sequence. And that could have been this large-scale, blown-out musical moment, but you chose to do it in a way that I think honors the material and honors the relationship of the characters. So can you speak, each of you, on that push-pull of that sequence, the editing of that sequence, and kind of like finding that intimacy?
Well, the first thing I'll just say is, like, this is the sole musical number that I cut in my old house in Altadena. And so to have cut but a first assembly of this song in that house is I don't know, there's just something very spiritual about that. And my first cut was also using these giant crane shots. The first pass of it, the first set of dailies were actually these big epic crane shots that they had shot of the number. And we thought, well, if we're gonna end this, a big musical, we gotta end big, right? We gotta swooping shots and every kind of angle. And then Jon said the weekend was in the past, and they're like, we're actually gonna go back and we're gonna start shooting some more traditional coverage, close-ups in this 360 shot. And I didn't really know why we were going to do that until I saw those dailies. And I was like, oh no, I had it all wrong. Like, I need to now, after we cut this, this is an intimate love story, and this is two friends saying goodbye, and it's all about loneliness. It's all about messiness and each of them yearning for each other and just literally trying to find the words about, whether, that they're about to say goodbye to each other. And so to then present that to Jon, and, it's always terrifying for an editor to present their first cut, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna, this is just what I think this scene is gonna be, and then, there is we start to collaborate together and then try to, find more of those honest moments, and it's, for me, it's like, always, I'm making choices on what moves me or makes me cry, and no different from like the Ozdesk Ballroom. Like the Ozdesk Ballroom and For Good is all built on how I'm responding to the performance. And if there's one look that I just feel like I have to be on, that's going to be the choice. It is based on gut. And then I go to Jon and say, did I get this right? What do you think? And then suddenly, like, 2 weeks before we're gonna walk, we find this messy little moment with Ari when she's just crinkling her nose a certain way. Yeah. And we're like, oh my God, that was there for 3 years and we found this little moment, and so it's, what I love about Jon is that we both respond to footage a certain way, and it's all based on performance and how we connect to the footage emotionally. And I think it's a very, very unique. I've never worked with anybody like Jon. And how he gets the performance of his actors and then allows me to sort of stretch and really build into the scene. And For Good and the Ozdesk Ballroom are a testament to his work with the actors, and then allowing me to sort of just live as an artist with him.
And Jon, can you speak to the intimacy of that scene? Because again, you could have gone crane shots, big swooping shots, but you knew you were listening to your movie.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that Myron and I, editing is the most unique part of making of movie making. It is the medium itself is in the editing in terms of that no other medium has that layer to it. And so it is a marriage between two people, ultimately. We are the ones who know every ounce of every piece of footage. Not even the actors remember what they shot, but we know every take, every moment, and so we live very closely with this. And like Myron said, that we at certain points you have to prioritize, do you want the scope? Do you want the audience to feel something that the camera gives them? Or do you want to trust an actor's moments? You want to break the tempo? And what I love about Myron is we usually, for the most part, puts performance first. Sure, is it a little bit shaky in this moment? If Ari is giving a moment of her lifetime, we're going to use that take. If Cynthia does this wink and we're just a little out of flow, we're gonna use that take, and so again, that doesn't always happen, but that's, I would say, 90% of the time. And I think that's why when you see Myron's work, you feel his heart in there. And so he doesn't, and I'm really grateful that I did a lot of studio movies before ever doing Wicked, or even Crazy Rich Asians, or In the Heights. To me, this is like my new chapter of my life, because I think the movies before, which I love, were part of me feeling that learning how to make movies, learning how to work with the crew, learning all this stuff, and learning how to get comfortable with the machinery and the stuff and all the technical stuff. What I feel like I'm in now is this mode of being able to almost be at zen with it and really understand actors are sort of the last tool of the toolbox that I just love because it's organic, and Myron feels the same way, so he will dig at the same things. And so something like For Good, for instance, is something that, yes, I had to shoot the big shots because I didn't know when we walked away from this what we would need. And two movies, of course, do you want the big thing? But what we found is in those little details, these girls earned to drive the car here. And by just letting it play like dialogue, it would play like no other For Good has ever played. Because usually For Good, if you look at the structure of For Good, it is the most song-structured musical song in this show. It is literally the two divas come out and they sing to the crowd out this way, so you get to see both of their faces. And you've seen every cover available, from acoustic to whatever. And so, like, how do you even compete with that? Well, we have a story. And now these two girls can look at each other. And the issue with two women looking at each other while singing a song like this is when you have a two-shot, you only see half their face. So you're not getting their actual expression. So the choice then, whose face are you on for what line? Oh God. And then, and that's beyond, first you find the performances of both, and then you say, and then what happens when you want to cut to the other person listening to what they're giving. So we have to be so in the weeds with what they're saying and how they're saying it, so that when she says, I heard it said that people come into our life for a reason, then when you cut to Elphaba, she's hearing, the reaction is hearing those words that she's actually saying. Not just the reaction like, oh, Ari. She's hearing her friend open her up. She thought she was here to help Glinda. And Glinda's giving her, hey, I'm gonna be okay. And because you gave me that strength. And then you come back to Elphaba again, and she hears it. And she's affected by that. And then when Glinda walks away as if she did her piece, then you go to Elphaba, and she turns. She says, this might be the last time we see each other. And if this is, like, I ask forgiveness, I ask for all these things. And when we started to build it that way, suddenly this number went beyond a musical number. It went into just singing. My favorite thing that people say, I forgot this was a musical. Yeah. Because that's what a musical is. It's when you forget that it's a structure of a device that's trying to get you closer to them. It's when you it emerges so organically that you just feel it coming out. Of course, sometimes, what is this feeling? You want it to pop, you want to do things. But also that is expressing what they're saying. That song isn't called Loathing for a reason. Even though it says loathing a lot, it's actually, you resist the person that's going to change the rest of your life. It is like destiny. It is like this thing. So I love that we get to play those. So popular isn't just about being popular. It's about a way of a philosophy that actually works for her and actually is going to be her superpower when she's by the end of this movie. So I'm going way off. But I'm just saying these are the conversations we have, and in For Good, I think that's one the closet really fucking kills us, because then we're like, this is the moment I've been waiting that stage cannot do. We cannot be that close with them. That means For Good has to be even better, otherwise it's going to overshadow For Good, a song that we've heard over and over and over again. The moment that we decide to go and play as dialogue, and then the moment in the mix, which I don't think anybody ever really talks about, that mix of that. I've never seen a musical number or any scene go from an 8 to an 11 because of the mix. Because if you're not on camera, you can hear her sniffle. When they touch each other, you can hear the touch. When you hear the echo, what does that make you feel? And Andy and Jon and Nancy they tweak this thing. Like, I remember coming in one day being like, okay, that's good. And the next day, they tweak this thing to make you're hearing the live vocals at its most raw, and you're including the other person in it. And there's just and the leaves go right when the music sort of needs it, but also in this gentle, sort of almost like a curtain to open up their hearts at the right emotional moment. These things are people never notice. They're like, oh, it's a musical number, whatever. But every detail of that, your senses are on high alert when you're watching a movie, and to get deeper, you have every part of that. In Girl in the Bubble, when she walks out, she shuts that door and it goes to silence. That was a revelation. He did this from something that the Girl in the Bubble was sort of working, but when, I don't know, eight weeks ago, it was like, forget the outro of the score, forget the intro of the music, just have the silence, how to shut her door. And then when you shut the door, suddenly, when we watched that footage in the mix, she became an actress with a costume on. And she was like almost meta, like when she clicked her, she'd walk, you could feel the costume. And she feels like Ariana Grande, and it doesn't feel like Linda coming in with a fanfare. That the whole audience, at least to me, felt like you were on edge. Where the fuck are we? We didn't wait it anymore. And then she looks at her reflection. And then our mixers brought in one violin that was just hesitant after she started to sing. Look, there's that girl, and then it just hesitantly comes in. That was our way into that. Now you're leaning forward, like, what is she going to say? And then suddenly that number feels like we're getting an inside look at her, and we don't deliver the answer until she's in there. So I'm going to stop now. But that.
I want to bring up one more quick thing because I know we have to get out of here soon, but even in Wonderful, when we're sitting around, like we talked about this when we did the interview, because the actors are actually holding on to the camera operators who do that. That's tell this story. That's also all narratively driven. It's all meant to be like this thing where everything's being mixed up and the messages about what the wizard's doing and the intentions. Like these shots look cool, but they're all done with purpose. Can you go through that? This is a cool story.
I don't remember exactly the story you're talking about. I will tell you how it is.
I mean, shot.
Yes. I mean, a Wonderful is a tough one anyway. Because I'm like, do I really believe that Alpha was going to be convinced by the wizard? We just did a whole fucking movie where she's like, now 30 minutes into the movie and she's going to be convinced. But that was something that we talked about early. Is like, oh, the only person who convinced her would be Glinda.
Yeah.
And we're looking for Glinda to
She doesn't sing Wonderful on the stage, though. That's an addition we put in the movie. That's right. She's part of what's convincing Alphabet. She says your ways are working. Come to meet people and trust you. Come to our side.
And this idea that Wonderful has this sort of ragtime feel to like an old-timey, we have stuff from The Great Dictator and stuff from even Sound of Music, but also Singing in the Rain, Make 'Em Laugh stuff. So he's that character in it. And at some point, and Stephen Schwartz had this great idea of adding Unlimited to there to reflect this unexecuted promise that they had with each other, even on a sort of rinky-dink Peter Pan ride around. So it was like Walt Disney fake. I wanted shots of like him like pulling things. It was just too much. But him going around, we actually built the most amazing little ride that went from the top thing all the way down because they're being actually held from the bottom. This thing was incredible. When I came down, and they had to strapped it and all those things, and we made the lights, and it was the whole thing. But so we wanted to feel like childlike again because they were so grown, and I just felt like let's bring them back to that childlike wonder in Wizard and I, and that she would take them through the drapes out the other end. And when you come out the other end, which we've never seen go that way, then you suddenly open up to a carousel and it's lit like you're inside the rainbow. And as they go around, then they would start to dance just like they did back in the day. And they would grab, so they had Carson, our 8-camera operator, we wanted them to spin almost like dizzy, almost like getting wrapped into this like sugary sweet dream, almost in the way of, in Titanic, as their last spin around before tragedy hits in that movie. This is their last beautiful, innocent moment. So they had to hold on to Carson, who has an Alexa 65, which is a huge thing, on a Steadicam, which, by the way, if they lost grip, he would probably fall backwards and get punctured very brutally. So they held him, they're here, and have to make sure that they're within outside the minimum focus, and they have to spin around and do all that while the thing is spinning, and they would switch, and then Jeff Goldblum would hold the hand, so it was all very sort of crazy and beautiful. So yeah.
Can we just come here every night and just talk about the passion that this guy has? Please, I have nowhere to go.
I was saying one last thing. I'm sorry, I was just thinking about that. But this is something that we all shared. Like, so in the mix, I really think this mix is so important. So there's the door scene, right? And Jon Powell wrote an amazing score for it, but we had temp score in there for a lot of our early screenings. And the temp score was like so solid, like it made you weep immediately when you heard it. And so Jon Powell doesn't listen to temp score. He doesn't want to listen to any of it. He wants to start from scratch. Same way we work. He doesn't see any of my previews. He doesn't see any of my storyboards. We just drop shit on him. He cuts it, and I have my ideas in my back pocket, but our magic comes from discovering together, and I know that I can always go to my idea, but the magic comes from maybe there's something that we find together. So in the door scene, we're trying to find like what can really give this door scene is due, and every time he wrote it, it just wasn't like enough, and I didn't know how to explain it, what the right words were, but he found this beautiful cue. It has no theme from any of the other parts of the movie, and they're recording it in London. It took us all the way until basically they got to London to record this 100-piece orchestra, and they're playing. I couldn't go because we're editing the movie still, and so I'm there listening at home, and it's beautiful. And it's like, oh my gosh, we got it. That is amazing. And it felt like one of those old Hollywood movies where they're leaving on the train and they're going and they're saying goodbye. I was like, we're going to give a whole generation of young people that experience of being in the movie theater and feeling these two people being separated. And then I was like, oh my gosh, we had a train scene. It's from movie one. And what did we play there? What did we play there? Because it felt like the end of one of those movies. Oh, we played No One Mourns the Wicked. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful, just growth, and then they waved to each other, and it felt like the end of the relationship, and then Glinda changes the narrative and runs to her, and then it doesn't end up being that. But suddenly, if you were to play No One Mourns, that same version, as the door closes, and you can escalate, you can climax to that, and they actually even do that on the door. She like leans her head on the door, and Elsa goes like this, and you could play that, except this time, she can't change the narrative. The door's closed. And then moments later, this beautiful children's choir sings No One Mourns, and it becomes almost spiritual and ethereal. And so in our minds, like that intellectually, that is a great idea. And we told John Powell, and he was like, what the fuck? We're like, can we try it? Can we try it? So he actually had to record it separately and do a whole thing. I was like, but we're not killing the other one yet. Let's just like keep it around. I really believe this is the bookend to that moment. They cannot change this. And so we put it in the mix, and it was beautiful, and it was heartwarming, it was all the things. And then we showed it even to the studio at the final mix with that. And they're like, let's try the other one real quick. And we played the other one, and we showed Mark, and he's like, I'll tell you what is fascinating. He's like, of course, No One Mourns the Wicked works. It's a beautiful moment. It is cinema. But this new track, you don't know what the themes are. And so the audience doesn't know where you're going. And this section does not occur in any other version of Wicked. And if you're really letting the audience, in the same way that when she bursts out for It's Me and Defying Gravity, and instead of flying, she falls, and now we have the audience in our hands, and they don't know what's happening. This is that moment that score was something they never heard, we don't know where it's headed. That feels like what the audience deserves at this moment. And then the No One Mourns choir that comes after is sort of the healing part of this. We're back into the story. But that, the unexpected theme, we debated many times, but we put it in without even the studio seeing which one we put in. I don't even know if they know. They're probably finding out right now on that camera. That is a decision that like us, and then half the room was split. Half the room was like, you gotta go No One Mourns. I'm walking if you don't know. And the other half was like, the unexpected. This, you earn this, they earn this. And the audience deserves this. And so, and when I see that scene and I hear that, and I see the audience feel it, I know there's a piece of that is because it's a discovery for them to musically.
That's incredible. I love watching you talk about this film. I love your passion for this. I know we gotta end it. Do all three of you know what is said at the end of the film in the whisper?
Maybe. I don't want to know.
Oh, so you actually don't know?
I didn't say that. Well, I would just say that I'm not supposed to know. This is a shared moment between the two, so I don't want to know. I don't think any of us should know.
Yeah. It's like Lost in Translation. That moment with Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson. Well, congratulations to all three of you. Everything you said. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for seeing both.